Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Of course, when something is called unremarkable, inadequate, not worth it, it becomes a conversation piece. And according to many, especially those over in the entertainment media, Superman was unremarkable and not worth it. And you know what? I have to agree. And we'll talk about it, so here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, we just hit 42,000 and I want even more. That's right, I'm aiming for 50K, hopefully by the end of January or at least the end of February. And to get there, I need your help. So if you're here for the first time or the 1,000th, or you stumbled upon this video, just click on the subscribe button down below. It's absolutely free. It's painless. And if you hit the bell icon and turn on all notifications, you won't miss anything, because I do dozens of videos per week and live streams and just kind of contributions everywhere else. So I don't want you to miss those, and you don't want to miss those. You want to be informed and entertained. And so do I, which is why I gave you my thoughts on Superman originally. And while it wasn't a terrible movie, it was hardly remarkable, at least according to so many people out there, but it was the box office most specifically that was not remarkable. In fact, it wasn't even profitable, and anybody who says differently is, well, not telling you the truth. So let's have a conversation around this particular film and its lack of performance. So on January 7th, Matt McGloin wrote an article over at Cosmic Book News, which gave us this and that headline. And 6 months later, the verdict is in. And while James Gunn's Superman didn't bomb, it definitely underdelivered. In fact, I would argue there's no profit here, and I imagine that'll be part of the conversation. But in the 2025 box office recap, Puck News' Matthew Belloni, the former head of THR and a Hollywood insider, no matter what you think, describes the Warner Brothers superhero reboot as drawing a mostly indifferent overseas reception. And honestly, I think that may be just a bit kind. While it grossed a decent but hardly remarkable $617 million worldwide, that includes a strong $356 million in domestic haul. Off a $125 million debut, it really didn't stretch, but international turnout never picked up and never got any better, and I added that last part myself. The worldwide number trails not just other comic book works, but specifically, the article points out that Superman came in below How to Train Your Dragon, the F1 movie, and, of course, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle, which was kind of a surprise and kind of something that, well, a lot of people truly enjoyed. It's not exactly what you would expect for the launch of a brand new DC universe and something that they were supposed to be building on top of. In other words, it's not the world's best foundation. And as I said before, back then, it was a decent film, just not great. And that's something that DC's been missing for a long time. Even under Zack Snyder's universe, there wasn't a lot of moments of greatness. In fact, there was a lot of moments of darkness and filteredness and, I don't know, dourness. And look, if you understand what was going on in the background of Zack Snyder's life, you get it. But global audiences rejected the new stuff, especially the lighter, politicized take. That's not my opinion. That's Belloni's, and it's Matt's writing. The underperformance overseas tracks with what insiders and international fans have been saying since the first trailers dropped. James Gunn's Superman simply does not resonate. Foreign audiences, especially in China, long connected with Zack Snyder's more serious, mythic tone in the DCEU, but Gunn's take, viewers saw it as a goofy reboot with political messaging baked into a narrative. And honestly, not a very good one. Multiple immigrant fans and international viewers pointed us to how the now infamous Kaiju scene, where Superman abandons the Asian civilian on a rooftop, to them it felt like a slap in the face. And to be fair, I can see that point of view. That perspective seems to be reflected in how we feel about Hollywood these days, abandoning the America cinema goer for anything else that's not connected to America. Almost like you're embarrassed of us and taking our money. At least that's my opinion. And the subplot involved fictional nations at war, which came across as thinly veiled commentary on American foreign policy, something that has never played well in the superhero films outside the US, because it's transparent, and it's ugly, and it's dumb. And it limits the relevance of your film to as long as the conflict exists. And when it's rectified and resolved, it destroys any of that plot point on any rerun, restream, or physical purchase, which is, again, dumb. Gunn's Lex, who Gunn openly admits he identifies with over Superman, murders an immigrant right in front of Superman, who is powerless to stop it. In other words, why would we support this? This guy is executing an immigrant, somebody that we either aspire to be, we are, or could be. That's a bad idea, Jeans, if I've ever seen one. Snyder's Superman still resonates globally. In fact, you often see comparisons between the old films and the last couple of new things that Gunn has put out, which, doesn't ring well. It's not just about tone, it's about the storytelling. Snyder's Superman was portrayed as a hopeful immigrant and a mythic protector, kind of what he was supposed to be. Gunn's version, some felt, inverted the symbolism by changing Jor-El's arc and inserting Quirk over clarity. The film alienated many who once found meaning in Kal-El's origin. Why would Gunn's Superman wear his family crest, knowing now what he knows? That's a solid question. If you remember, he was essentially introduced to the idea that he was there to conquer and rule Earth because he was capable of it. There was no hopeful message of the 1979 film, and while certainly there was a tweak there done by Lex's computer genius that fools one of his comrades, it won't hold up over time and over the course of multiple films. About whether or not Lex will come clean, everybody's going to forget about and forget the relevance, if they even cared in the first place. Another bad thing from James Gunn. Fans online, particularly in Asia, have been blunt in their reaction. They preferred the stakes, drama, visual gravity of Snyder's DC films, although to me, it was dark and grainy and underlit and filtered in a way that just left you hopeless at the end. Snyder's Man of Steel and Batman v Superman may have divided critics, but they united global audiences, especially in China, which, again, Hollywood seems to think is important. I don't, because they don't really take home the China bucks. They just get to show it off. Both films performed strongly in China, but not Gunn's. Gunn Superman didn't get that kind of response because it didn't offer the same sense of grandeur. In fact, it's really kind of Gunn's signature to dumb down and bring the stakes down dramatically in anything that he puts together, especially things that he directs. The era of superhero domination is over, and I think that's a statement. That's an accurate one. And I think it's also reflected in the newest offering, Drunk Supergirl. The industry seems to be waking up to the new reality. Superhero movies are now just like any other franchise. Execution and character matter more than the logo, and I would suggest something revolutionary. The story matters. They need a good story. Gunn hasn't been able to tell one since the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and I doubt he'll ever be able to tell another good one again. At least not without a lot of help, and he's certainly going to have to abandon Tom King. Belloni points out that we're no longer in the era of guaranteed billion-dollar capes and cowls. Even the Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day on the horizon, the genre's dominance is clearly behind it, and those are likely to underperform, which I had to add there myself. But DC needs to recalibrate. And they need to do it quickly so that audiences, especially outside of America, may continue to enjoy it instead of checking out, which, to be fair, I think that's happening universally. But hey, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Do you think that it was worth it to make a mediocre at best Superman movie to start the new foundation for a new DC? Do you think James Gunn was worth it to steal away from Marvel and invite to do a job that he was even not convinced he could do himself? And if you're curious about that story, you can check it out in the linked story on the screen right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. But probably not at a James Gunn movie.